Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. And this morning, we shall be looking again at Ariel Henry, since, I've just read an article in the Haiti Liberte, right, which is a Haiti Liberte, and it's a newspaper online, an online newspaper that is edited, I think, also published by Kim Ives. And Kim Ives is an American journalist, and he has been living in Haiti, or he lives on the somewhere on the Dominican Haiti border, Haitian border, Dominican Haitian border, somewhere thereabout. But he has extensive knowledge about Haiti, has been working with Haiti and reporting on Haiti for many, many years. And I respect his knowledge. I think he has an encyclopedic knowledge of Haiti. I think he's also a fluent speaker of Haitian Creole and perhaps French. So he has an inner knowledge of what is going on the ground, and also he understands culturally what that country is all about. One of the things that we need to understand is the importance of studying language and culture, right? And the people who have an insight to the language that is spoken by a particular country will have a keener insight into how that particular culture functions and understand the minds and the mindset of that particular nation state, right? And a lot of times people will go to countries and they'll think that, without speaking the language and understand the culture, because if you don't speak the language, you will not understand the culture. The language is a tool that gives you an insight into the culture. In fact, I think there is a statement that suggests that the more languages you speak is the more human you are, because you take on another humanity, because languages represent a different mode of thinking, right? So when somebody says I am hungry, and in Spanish where they say tengo hambre, which means I have hunger, it's another way of thinking, right? While in English, we're using the verb to be, but in Spanish and in the Latin, the Romance languages, they're using the verb tener, which means to have, right? Avoir in French and stuff like that. It's something very, very interesting. And that's a minute aspect of a language. There's so many other different aspects when you talk about the idiomatic expressions and what they use and say, and how those expressions form their understanding of the world, not to mention the religious component and stuff like that. So much to delve into. But today we're talking about Ariel Henry, and I just wanted to open up this morning with a scripture coming from Revelation 18, and this is taken from the King James Version. Now, let me share my screen with you so that you can also read along with me, because the purpose of this channel is to think and also to read for yourselves and to see, to verify, to confirm the facts and the information as I present them to you. Now, in Revelation 18, it says here, and after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen as and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. All right, so Babylon here is a system, it's a religio-political system that the angel is crying that it's fallen because it was so corrupt. It was a habitation of devils, right? Devils controlled that religio-political system. Remember now, it's not only religious, but it's also political. And this is what we have to understand. And every foul spirit means every unclean thing you can think about is that system practices, can be affiliated with that system. There's nothing good about that system. And Christ did say in his time when he was on earth that the enemy of souls, the devil, what we call Satan, and his angels, because the devil, he says, has nothing good in him. right? Absolutely nothing, even though sometimes he appears as an angel of light. Now, verse 3 says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. All right. So the Bible, when it talks about fornication, it means when a church, right? A pure church, because the Bible, the symbol of the church is a woman, right? And you have a pure woman and you have an impure woman. A prostitute represents the impure woman, right? But the pure woman represents Christ, who is a symbol of righteousness. And the impure woman, who is a prostitute, who is a whore, which the Bible says that Babylon, this is a whore. She is a whore because what she does is she propagates unbiblical truths. She merges earthly, impure content and truth, well, not truth, and lies, earthly lies, I should say, with religious, biblical truth, with the truth of the Bible. And because of that merger with the truth, with the untruth, half truths mixed with truth, lies mixed with truths, then we call that fornication because it becomes impure. All right. It's affecting your body, right? Because remember now that it's almost like you have a pure body, right? And you go along with a prostitute, and then you might get a disease or, something might happen mentally, because whatever we think, when we connect sexually with someone, it affects us, right? We think sometimes, oh, we're just worried about the sexual disease that might be, might afflict our bodies. But we also have to think about the spiritual and the mental connection. It's just more than physical connection when you connect with someone. So here God is talking about spiritual Babylon, right? Which is a religious political system. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. So the politicians of the world, the kings of the earth are the politicians, your leaders who lead you, and they are in bed with this woman, right? With this fallen church, with this system of this church of apostasy, right? And when we say apostasy, a one which has moved away from the truth. And as a result of that is practicing adultery, is an adulterous woman, right? Who seeks power in the world. And remember now, the Bible says, Christ says that his kingdom is not of this world. So when you hear any religious leader trying to come together within an earthly power suggesting that we have to bring righteousness to the world, you have to be careful because Christ says his kingdom is not of this world because this world is filthy, right? It is filthy and it is an impure world. Christ and his angels cannot live on this filthy planet. And we need to understand that. We think when we go around and we see the White House and we see some of the beautiful castles around the world, we think that these things are so wonderful, right? And our eyes are so mesmerized by what we see. But we have to understand that what we see is not what we get. Behind those castles, behind those beautiful buildings, the Bible is saying that they contain, it's a lot of filthiness and sanitary things happening there. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So the merchants of the earth are the business people, right? They are the ones who, so when people were even plying slavery and whatever they're doing, engage with, whatever business activities they're engaged in. I must say, no, all businesses are corrupt, but we must understand that most are, right? Most of our large enterprises, and we're living in a world now where we see that we're getting towards having the very rich and the very poor, just like what is happening in Haiti at the moment. And verse 4 says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Right? This is something you need to understand. And if we just study the book of Revelation, we'll see that God has unpacked what is going to happen, what's going to take place in this world. And already we are seeing, we are witnessing a lot of these things happen. One of the things we often have to understand when you think about the whore, and one of these days we'll talk more about Revelation 17, 18, 13, 14, to get a better understanding of what the word of God is saying, because it's important for us to understand that now. Because remember now, in the future, right, we are going to have to deal with the mark of the beast. And this is the most solemn message and solemn warning that has ever been given to our world, right? The mark of the beast, because God is going to pour out his judgment and his vials, I should say, on sinful man. And it is going to be poured out this time without mercy. Remember now, even during the flood, and some of you tend to deny that there was a universal flood, there was, but God showed his mercy to Noah and his family, right? And the earth was saved, right? God protected the earth, even though there was a worldwide flood, but God protected it, right? He did not destroy the entire world completely. What is going to happen during that time of the mark of the beast is that God is going to destroy this world, right? His anger, his wrath is going to be poured out without mixture of any mercy at all. And you and I don't want to see that, because whenever we see, for example, if you and I have lived through earthquakes and hurricanes and tornadoes, we can still see the mercy of God. The fact that we all did not perish in it, right? It means, therefore, and that we have buildings still, and we have roads to still drive on and walk on and do our businesses. But there's coming a time when everything that can be shaken will be shaken. And God is not going to show this world any mercy. But let's go on to what I read in the Haiti Liberte, all right? Because this article is very, very important that we read it. As I read the article, I thought about Jamaica. And I thought about Prime Minister Holness, and I hope that you guys are praying for him, because what Jamaica did recently by hosting this transitional council for the presidency, or emergency CARICOM meeting there, in which they were trying to have a transitional government in Haiti, is something that has left a spot, a stain on Jamaica that I don't know if it will ever be removed, right? Because that we should not have gotten ourselves entangled into that situation that the US actually forced us into. And Jamaica will have to pay. Not only the politicians, but the people, the citizens, will have to pay for the blood that will be spilled in that country of Louverture, right? Something that we need to think about, because as I'm saying to you, God is no respecter of persons. And Andrew Holness should know better, should have known better. And if it meant stepping down, right, as his political daddy, Bruce Golding, had to do, I think that he should have done so, right? He probably can intercede with God, but what he did should not have been done. And Jamaica should not have, being the land of Marcus Garvey, should not have entertained and should not have convened such a meeting on their shore. This is my opinion. You might differ, but this is what I am sensing, right? And something is not right. And it seems like Jamaica is on a downward spiral. And this, what they have just done, is not going to make the situation much better for Jamaica and for our prosperity. Okay, now let's go on to the article, because that's important for us to delve into at the moment. Now, so we have here, the question is being asked by Kim Ives. As I told you, he's an American journalist who seems to reside on the Dominican Haitian border. I'm not sure where he lives, but I know that he has a very in-depth knowledge and understanding of Haiti, its people, and culture. Now, the question is asked here by Ives: is former de facto Prime Minister Ariel Henry now a de facto prisoner? That is something interesting. What an article, what a question to be asking, that this man, who was in recent times purported to be the successor of Jovenel Moise, and the United States was supporting him, it seems, to become the next president, the next de facto president of Haiti. The question can be asked now, is he now a de facto prisoner? So from a de facto president to a de facto prisoner, right? Remember now that Prime Minister Golding of Jamaica in 2000, became the de facto Prime Minister of Jamaica in 2007. And by 2010, had it not been for his decision to retire and to demit office, he might have ended up a de facto prisoner himself. But this is what the title of the article is. So we have to delve into it right now. Let me see if I can make my screen bigger so that I can see more clearly. Good, very good. So this is much better for me to read. So we have Ariel Henry 74, once the king on Haiti's chessboard, has now become a pawn of the US in its increasingly desperate bid to send a proxy intervention force into the rebelling Caribbean nation. This is the picture of Haiti Liberte has received from a well-placed source with intimate access into and knowledge of the US government. So obviously he's speaking with someone who has intimate knowledge of the US government, right? And that person also has access into all that happens there in Washington. So Washington is now scrambling for a way to send a quick reaction force into Haiti. And Ariel Henry remains one of their most important bargaining chips, the source says. So we don't know what is happening behind the scenes, because we know that Ariel Henry should have landed in the Dominican Republic on March, was it 7th or whenever he should have landed. And at the last minute, it was declared that he could not have landed here for security reasons. And the DR is suggesting that they do not want to be tied up right now with matters with Haiti. They don't want to fall into that trap. And somehow, I'm not sure if the DR is on the side of the US, but I think that they might have made the right decision, because they have not fallen into that trap. I think Jamaicans and other Caribbean nations, but Jamaica in particular, has fallen into that trap, which I don't know how we are going to come out of that trap. After his chartered jet landed in Puerto Rico on March 5, the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, interrogated Henry for 3 days, according to our source. Within 48 hours, the U.S. deported to Egypt the 4 Egyptian mercenaries. So he previously mistakenly advised as Kenyans who were acting as Henry's security detail, our source said. So it's interesting now that here is Henry having security guards who are Egyptians who were pretending to be Kenyans. Wow. It's like we're watching a movie here. The first day of the FBI's interrogation was devoted to questioning Henry about his role in the July 7, 2021 assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse, our source said. Now, one of the things I've said on this channel before is, yes, if Henry became the successive de facto president after Jovenel Moïse's death, why did they allow that to happen when they know that it was alleged that he could have been in one of the intellectual planners, if you will, the intellectual authors of the death of Jovenel Moïse? Why would they? Even if he is not guilty, even if he's not culpable, why would they allow him to become the de facto or the acting prime minister and president of Haiti? I mean, well, he wasn't the acting prime minister because he had already, even though he was an unelected official, because Moise had just elected him without the election, without the Haitian people participating in that election process. So he was, in fact, I should say, they classified him as a de facto prime minister, but he was also, an unelected official, an unelected prime minister, and an unelected president. But the United States chose him, the core group, chose him to be the president of Haiti, the de facto president of Haiti. The remaining 2 days focused on Haiti's February 23rd, 2024 payment of 500 million rather, to Venezuela to pay off the 2.3 billion Petrocaribe loan account established between the two countries in 2008. Henry fainted during the questioning on March 7th, the source said. So they're questioning him about two things, right? One, the assassination of Ariel Henry, not Ariel Henry, but Jovenel Moise, and what sort of role he might have played in that assassination attempt. Well, assassination, not attempt, but assassination because the guy died, right? What role he played in that assassination. And also the fact that it seems that he's involved in the theft of funds that were dedicated to Petrocaribe, right? And that is something that Jamaicans also need to understand and to question. At least in Haiti, they're questioning what happened to those funds, because we have not heard anything about the savings and what projects they might have built or not built, right? It seems to me that this was a grand theft. Under the agreement, Venezuela wrote off the remaining 1.8 billion US dollars Haiti owed the country. The deal was brokered by Paris-based Global Sovereign Advisory, GSA, founded by Anne-Laure Kitchell, Tamara Portros, GSA's managing director and lead agent for Latin America, negotiated with Henry. The FBI believes that Henry received a $138 million kickback for negotiating the deal, our sources said. That's incredible. Due to the FBI's findings, diplomatic Secret Service DSS agents handling Henry have placed him under de facto house arrest on the U.S. Army's Fort Buchanan in Guaynabo, Puerto Rico. So there are 6 agents guarding him, and he has been in ill health, even vomiting, according to one of the health professionals tending to him. Now, one of the reasons why I read Revelation 18 is the fact that this grandiose religio-political system called Babylon, right? It's not now the Babylon that you knew in world history, but it has a religio-political function here. And these politicians, the kings of the world, tend to be so attracted. The merchants of the world are all connected with this system, right? And here is Henri that was connected. His eyes were mesmerized by the wealth and the power that this system, right, exudes. And look at what has befallen him, if this is true. Because we're not sure it is true, but based on what Ives is saying, this seems to be true, because he has spoken to a person who has access and also key knowledge of what is happening in the US government. He has been moved to the army base from his original residence at San Juan's Isla Verde Marriott Hotel, in part to prohibit media access to him, our source said, because nobody knows where he is, really. My understanding also, in another article I read some times ago, is that when he went to Puerto Rico, he had to be translated from, he had to move from the one particular hotel. When he eventually landed in Puerto Rico, he went to a particular hotel, but then the Haitians on the ground in Puerto Rico learned of his whereabouts and they went there to protest. So the secret agents, the American secret agents, had to remove him from that hotel and send him to another undisclosed one. A second reliable source spoke to a senior State Department official who told him that the Biden administration does not want to prosecute Henri, fearing that it will undermine Biden's 2024 re-election bid. The administration is extremely anxious to stabilize the situation in Haiti, the official said. Now, the Biden administration understands that they are not going to stabilize the situation in Haiti if they continue to foist a government upon Haitians that the Haitians do not want. And it is very interesting to note that the Biden administration, which says that it is pro-Black and it's an inclusive, it believes in diversity and equity and inclusion, is the same administration that is heading this sort of disastrous policy in Haiti. I am sure if it were under Donald Trump's administration, that people would have been crying foul and they would have been crying racism. But because the Democrats like to talk about their inclusivity and the fact that they believe in diversity and equity, then nobody seems to be sounding the alarm. Right? And even Black people in the United States believe that the Biden administration is actually doing a fantastic job, right? And is not practicing what we call fascism and is not a fascistic, right, government. Only Trump operates and the Republicans are racist. The Democrats are not. But what is happening on the ground in Haiti suggests another story. Now, the State Department wants to deliver Henry to a new Haitian government of its choosing. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken tried to concoct a transitional presidential commission. That's a CPT in Jamaica on March 11. A few CARICOM leaders, particularly Guyana's President Irfan Ali and Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness, hosted and fronted for the charade because it is a charade. It is a charade, and it is sad that Jamaica is actually participating in this charade. And here's Prime Minister Andrew Holness to your right, and in the middle here we have the President of Guyana, that's Irfan Ali, and this to my left, extreme left here, you have the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, right? Very, very interesting. Look at this guy's face, huh? Look at this guy's face. Now, very, very interesting. There's some dark forces in this world, and you and I have got to acquaint ourselves with these people, right? We've got to acquaint ourselves with these people and their agendas. But certainly, you can see that this guy has no good intentions, right? And you can see the Prime Minister's face here, Andrew Holness. He's not so certain what he's about to. He's just doing the bidding of the US. And this guy is just, whatever. I'll do whatever, right? Whatever you want. Give me some money and I'll do whatever. I will sing from the book, even if I can't sing. I will have to crow, but I will do some, some singing. All right, so this is a commission, and these are the people who they are going to involve in this transitional government. I will not go into that article, into these 7, sectors or, coalition people who will be involved in the transitional government. So it seems that the US is trying to unite all gangs on the ground because based on what I have read and I'm reading so far, it seems like everything that is operating in Haiti now is a gang, from the politicians to the US embassy, to the people on the ground, right? All gangs. And they have to negotiate power. This is how it happens, and it's something that is sad. However broad it may appear, Blinken's presidential commission stands absolutely no chance of success because Washington demanded that its members must support UN Security Council Resolution 22699, which endorses but does not oversee a foreign military intervention. So it endorses, but it does not oversee. So it's not going to be counted as UN forces, though they have been UN approved, but when they get on the ground, they will not be counted as UN forces. It means, therefore, that they can do anything, and they will not be held accountable for the violations of human rights. And this is what we have to understand. This is the United Nations that you so like and you respect. and you have high regards for. Now, a foreign military intervention into Haiti called the Multinational Security Support Mission, right, the MSS. The Haitian people overwhelmingly reject the deployment of this Kenyan-led as currently planned force and will definitely not accept any transitional presidential council that agrees with it. And that's what it is doing, right? The purpose of sending Henry to Kenya was for these special forces to go to Haiti to secure and to protect US interest, right? It's not to bring democracy to Haiti. And that is why the people are objecting to these forces on the ground, right? It's time for us to understand that. Now, I am not siding any of these forces on the ground in Haiti, because right now you cannot really piece which side is authentic and which side has, some amount of, you know, moral compass. All right, we just don't know, right? Everything is blurred. Everything is so nuanced. It's very difficult to unpack what is happening on the ground in Haiti. And I think that is where we are going as countries in the world, where corruption has taken over the politics of our nations, particularly Western societies, right? That right now we cannot decide who is corrupt from who is not. And that's not good, because it means, therefore, that people are not going to have any trust in government. And we know what's going to happen if you don't have trust in government. Look at Haiti. That's what is happening there now. When every iota of trust, when every element of trust has been eradicated, right, then you are not going to have a sitting government. And what you're going to have is anarchy on the land. And gangs are going to take over and other interests, and they are going to wreak havoc on the nation. That is what is happening in Haiti. Jamaica is next, I can imagine, because we also have problems with the gangs. And every day when I look in the Jamaican parliament, I see that people are losing trust and confidence in the government, in the Jamaican government, right? Sometimes I don't know if it's by design or it is that our leaders are ignorant and that they're not studying the waymarks, they're not studying the signs, they're not looking at history and trying to understand the different developments that happened, that took place in history. I am not sure, right? You probably can answer that question for yourselves. As a result, Blinken's formula went all over like a lead balloon or lead balloon. It's a lead balloon, right? Haiti Transitional Council plan appears to crumble after political parties reject it, reported France 24, 2 days after the fiasco. So the Haitians are not accepting the fact that the United States and the core group of the United Nations are planning presidential or have been planning a presidential council so that they can, what should I say now, impose that, president or officials, so-called elected officials, upon the Haitian people. Now, we reject CARICOM's proposal, Maurice Jean-Charles vehemently told a packed March 13 press conference in Port-au-Prince. We have overthrown Henry's government. Does it make sense for us to now sit down at a table and negotiate with it? Right? So they don't want that sort of council. And the United States is still planning it, along with CARICOM leaders of this transitional government, which is not working for the Haitians, right? And they have been saying it, that they need fair elections, right? They need free and fair elections. And Washington is not listening. 2 weeks previously, the Heads Together to Save Haiti Alliance, that's a tête ensemble pour sauver Haiti, formed between former Laval's Senator Maurice Jean-Charles and former Senator-elect and a 2004 coup d'etat leader, Guy Philippe, had proposed a presidential council of Guy Philippe as president, former Supreme Court Judge Durin Jr. Dure, that's member, and Francois Saint-Ville-Hilaire, member, presented as a representative of the religious, women's, and university sectors by the solidarity-based joint proposal of healthy, patriotic, and progressive Haitian forces for an urgent exit from the crisis around Prime Minister Ariel Henry's resignation proposal. The document outlines the provisional government's composition, program, and goals. The swearing in of this three-member council is reportedly imminent. All right, so that is what is happening. But, what is interesting to me is that you have these gang members coming together and saying that we are willing now to fight against US hegemony because we understand that US wants to control. But we are not going to allow the United States to control us at this point of our history. They have done enough, and we are going to stand up against the US, United Nations, and the core group. Right? And we spoke about the core group. Well, have we spoken about the core group? Well, the core group includes countries like Spain, Germany, France, Canada, and including Brazil, right? Brazil, that is deemed to be the most populous Black society or nation outside of Nigeria, is participating in this national security force operation, right? That is what is understood. And Brazil also, was at the front and center of the UN occupation of Haiti, at least after the earthquake, right? They were at the helm, and they did a lot of, terrible things, disastrous things in Haiti after that terrible earthquake happened. Now, despite the near universal sentiment rejecting Washington's MSS-backed CPT, Blinken was still defending it as late as March 15th. So the United States, because Blinken is the Secretary of State, is still supporting, right, the mission of the MSS. And the Haitians are saying no. So who will have the final word? But what is being suggested here is that the gangs on the ground are saying that we want to have the final say. And if we don't have the final say, as stated clearly by Jimmy Cherizier, then there is going to be an inevitable civil war, and it's going to be a bloodbath. And Jimmy Cherizier is on record saying that if the United States does not allow Haiti to run the show and to independently carve out a destiny for the country, then there is going to be an inevitable civil war. It's going to be unavoidable. Now, one of the things that is happening that we have to understand after the death of Moise, that's Governor Moise, the president was assassinated in 2019, his government was run by gangs. But after he died, the gangs who were working as intermediaries decided that they're not going to work, they're not going to continue to work as intermediaries, but they are going to be now running the show and to be at the helm, because they're saying, why do we work with these politicians when we have enough power to control them and to run the show, to run the country, as it were? And Jamaica has to take that as a warning, because we also have a lot of gangs that control that country, and that will eventually overpower the government, right? So Jamaica is treading on a similar path, that if it does not take stock, things are going to be as catastrophic as what is happening in Haiti. Every single day, There are challenges to that process, political challenges, security challenges, and we are working to address them, he said. Despite such feigned confidence on March 19th, a meeting was held by officials in the State Department's Western Hemisphere Division, headed by Brian Nichols, a well-placed source said. Recognizing that the CPT may be doomed and that they were racing the clock, and the Moise Philippe Provisional Council's swearing in, the officials played with the idea of swearing in a judge. The name floated was Judge Walter Wesser Voltaire, who recently finished his investigation of Jovenel Moise's murder to act as interim leader so Washington could land a quick reaction force under the MSS flag. So they're pretending as if they want to, unmask, as it were, unpack the death of Jovenel Moise, what it seems like is one of their guys, and he's not going to say the truth. He's not going to speak the truth. And people are wary of that, right? One of the reasons why they could be also, what should I say now, in Puerto Rico, they could have apprehended Ariel Henry and trying him there. It could also be a charade, but at least it's giving the public this sort of impression that the United States wants to discipline Ariel Henry, and they might discipline him as a charade also, to let the public know that or let the public perceive, or to give the public this perception, this false perception, that the United States means business and is serious about fairness and democracy, and it will punish anyone that is corrupt, right? When that is not so, because the United States is perhaps the most corrupt country in the world. Right? Even though it's not said, but it is. When we look at what the United States foreign policy, and we look closely at what the military does in the world, we have to say that the US is certainly the most corrupt country in the world in terms of the large numbers of people that have been killed unjustified by this empire. It is. And the economic activities in which she's involved through organizations such as the IMF and the World Bank and these multilateral corporations, right? We have to just say that. Call a spade a spade. It is the most corrupt country in the world. A key to selling either the CPT or a judge-led interim government would be the delivery to Haiti for judgment of Ariel Henry, a would-be sacrificial lamb calculated to assuage the people's anger and sell Washington's chosen leadership clique, right? So this is what is happening, that Washington wants to project itself as this democratic nation who wants to rid Haiti of corruption. And this is what it's doing. So we're not saying it's going to, but it might deliver Ariel Henry as a sacrificial lamb, right? And they'll pretend as if they were not involved in Henry's acts of corruption, right? This is how the empire works. So all those people who are working for empire and are not standing up for what is right and doing what is right, then the empire can spit you out of her mouth. Our sources' accounts belie an anonymous senior US official who told Reuters that Henry was free to remain in Puerto Rico or travel elsewhere. Haiti Liberte requested confirmation of or commented on our story from both the FBI and the State Department. At press time, the FBI had not replied, but the State Department did. Now, this is what the State Department is saying, and I quote, "These claims are false," right? And they would say that. The State Department press office wrote, "We would discourage sharing sensational claims on social media before first seeking verification from credible sources." We refer you to Prime Minister Henry for updates on his travel plans, unquote. This is what the State Department has stated. Haiti Liberte subsequently called and left text messages for Dr. Ariel Henry at two phone numbers he has previously used asking for his response or to contact us. We have received no reply at press time. So hopefully Ariel Henry, that's Dr. Ariel Henry, will respond to Haiti Liberte to clarify matters, right? Because right now we don't know if what the State Department is saying is true. Now, should Washington fail to install its replacement puppet government, it may also seek to woo the apparently anti-imperialist and impending Maurice Philip provisional government, right? So it seems to me that Philip was on the side of Moise, that's Jovenel Moise. And Jovenel Moise was also another, before his death, was also another unelected de facto president, right? He was not elected by the people, but he was imposed on the people, right? By the core group and the United States and the United Nations. In an interview with Fox News, former US Ambassador to Haiti, Pamela White, said, and I want you to listen to this. When I read it, I was like, wow, are you saying this? Am I reading this from a former US ambassador? But let's read it. In an interview with Fox News, former US Ambassador to Haiti, Pamela White, said that she had spoken to Philippe. And this is her words, and I read those words thusly. He is someone that can help with the situation, referring to Philippe, Guy Philippe. That's what the former US ambassador to Haiti is suggesting. And I believe we should be dealing with him, she said. We deal with the Duvaliers for 20 plus years. We dealt, I should say. That's what he said. We dealt with the Duvaliers for 20 plus years. So the Duvaliers, if you remember, Baby Doc and Papa Doc, were dictators. And here, the former US ambassador to Haiti is suggesting that we dealt, openly she's saying that, we dealt with the Duvaliers. Like, yeah, we dealt with them, even though they were some of the most repressive, they were two of the most repressive governments that Haiti has ever seen in its history. What a terror, what years of terror that Haiti experienced under the leadership of Papa Doc and Baby Doc. I think that we could certainly deal with Guy Philippe. He's charismatic, he's bright, he's articulate, and he has many, many people who are following him. Remember, we said that this is the same Guy Philippe who had been extradited to the United States in 2016, right? And was given a 10-year, 9-year sentence for drug trafficking and money laundering. But his sentence was shortened from 9 years to 6 years. And the United States sent him back to Haiti last year. I think it was November 30th, 2023. And people are asking the question, why did they shorten his sentence? And why is he there? Now, perhaps the former ambassador to Haiti is answering that question. He's saying that because he's articulate, he's bright, he's charismatic, and he has many, many people who are following him, right? So this is what the US is talking about now. When you have many people following you, it means that it is quantity over quality, right? So even if they're following you and you are a gangster, right? It means therefore that the US will work with you. And the US is proud of having worked with the Duvaliers because he says we dealt with the Duvaliers for 20 years, for 20 plus years. We dealt with them, right? Even though people know, I don't know if Americans know, that that government rained terror on the Haitian people. When you think about the Duvaliers, think about the Tonton Macoutes, right? those gangs that rained terror upon the Haitian people. Right? And this is what the former US ambassador is suggesting. In our enlightened society, in a world where we say that freedom and democracy is the very air that we breathe. Something to think about. On March 19th, Haiti Liberte reached Jimmy Cherizier, and I want you to listen to what. And I'm happy that they spoke to him, the leader and spokesman for the Vive Ensemble, right? Live together. That's what it means. The Vive Ensemble. It's in Creole, Haitian Creole. Live Together, coalition of armed groups which effectively drove Ariel Henry from power after he left for Kenya on February 27th. Now, these are the words of Jimmy Cherizier, popularly called Barbecue. We are not aware or part of the plans for the swearing in of the provisional government proposed by the coalitions of Guy Philippe and Moise Jean-Charles, Cherizier said. However, we have no problem with the council that would be headed by Guy Philippe. So it means, therefore, that Cherizier, Jimmy Cherizier, is seeing eye to eye with Guy Philippe. The two seem to be working together, and they seem not to be at loggerhead. Because he's saying we are fighting for the same things. We have the same vision for Haiti's future, and we hope he keeps his vision. We live together. That's his party or whatever, his coalition. There are so many coalitions there, councils in Haiti. So we in Live Together, which is Vive Ensemble, Haiti's armed groups who are now all united, will not fight his proposed installation, but we will fight the presidential council cooked up last week in Jamaica by foreign governments with a bunch of corrupt politicians who have not a patriotic bone in their bodies. If they try to take power, even with the support of foreign troops, we will fight them to the very last drop of our Dessalinian blood, right? And Dessalinian there refers to Jean-Jacques Dessalines, right? Who was what should I say now? He was the courageous Haitian soldier who became president afterwards. We can say that he's a founding father of Haiti. He delivered independence to the Haitian people, right? Because he just wiped out the planter class and the merchant class in Haiti at the time. Because remember now that, Toussaint Louverture, he did not want to get rid of the planter and the merchant class, all of them. He wanted to work with them as best as he could. He wanted to negotiate with them, if you will. But, eventually they betrayed him and sent him to France, where he actually died. So, Jean-Jacques Dessalines took it in his hand and said, okay, you guys are betrayers? Then I'm going to have to kill all of you. And those who do not escape, he killed every white person within his eyes, right? Because he understood that if they had not been gotten rid of, then Haiti could not have been free, could not have been truly free. They could not have, their slavery was going to be something that the planter, they were still negotiating, even after emancipation in Haiti, the planter and the merchant class from France and, were still planning on how they could restore the plantation and put back the African people, the Haitian people on the plantation, how they could have re-enslaved them. And Jean-Jacques Dessalines would have none of that. and he did what we would call ethnic cleansing of these European planter and merchant class people. He cleaned them out entirely, right? That is how he had to do it. It is sad, and I think that you'll hear the arguments by lots of Europeans or people of European descent say, yes, you know, what is happening to Haiti right now? They cleaned out all of the white people or Europeans in Haiti. Yes, he did that, not because he wanted to have done that, but because he was forced to do it. Because if he had not done that, then what took place, what had befallen, what befell the son of Louverture would have also befallen him in the fact of betrayal, the term in light of betrayal, because Toussaint Louverture was betrayed and he was trying to negotiate with these planter and merchant class, right, who were Europeans, but they did not want to negotiate, and instead they betrayed Toussaint Louverture. What a sad day that was when they betrayed him. Now, Haiti Liberte also asked Guy Philippe the same day by telephone if he would agree to a foreign military intervention by a force like the MSS if the US offered the hand over Ariel Henry as a peace gesture. So they're asking him, right, if the United States should hand over Ariel Henry as a sacrificial lamb, would, you know, would there be peace in Haiti? And this is what Guy Philippe says, or his response is, Ariel Henry is not the problem. And I agree with him. I have to agree here with Guy Philippe that Ariel Henry is not the problem. Just like Andrew Holness in Jamaica is not the problem, right? Philippe replied, he's just a piece of the bad guys' team. These guys are trying to take back power so they can keep destroying Haiti. But the question I would like to ask Guy Phillips, who are they? Who are these guys? I think that is what Haiti Liberte should have asked him. Who do you say, or who do you think want to take over Haiti or want to destroy Haiti? I think that question should have been asked because we don't know who these guys are, you know? Well, he certainly hasn't stated. Pressed if he would accept a foreign military intervention, Philippe responded, Haiti is a sovereign country. No patriots, no real Haitians would like any foreign nations to invade. What have previous interventions brought to Haiti? More misery, cholera, Ebola, AIDS. We don't need military interventions. We need help. We don't need soldiers here. The Haitian police force and the army are not enough, are enough rather, he says the Haitian police force and army are enough and are trained enough to end that. Is that true? Foreign troops will come here to keep the status quo and to help the rich. They will come here to make sure that rich countries keep stealing everything we have in Haiti. That's what they're here for, not for us, right? And that is true. You know, we can't knock him for that. My only question is Guy Philippe the real guy? Is he the real deal? Or is he also being used as a proxy? Is he being used as a tool of the United States? Because that would be an excellent plan to use a guy who pretends as if he's against them, but in the final analysis, he's pro-US policies. Something that we need to think about. But when we listen to what the former US ambassador, what's her name, Pamela White, suggests that, you know, the fact that the United States worked with the Duvaliers for over 20 years, for 20 plus years, as she suggested, then they should be able to work with Guy Philippe because Guy Philippe is bright and he's articulate and he's charismatic and he has a lot of followers. But to compare Guy Philippe with the Duvaliers is something that is interesting, right? Something that is interesting. So, asked if he thought the Haitian people could stop the intervention, he says here, there is no weapon more powerful than the people's will. If Haitian people want to resist, we will resist together. If they have to kill us together, they will kill all of us. But we can resist, and we will. Certainly, we will. Indeed, if all else fails, Washington appears prepared to send its own troops. So Washington is trying its best to avoid sending its own troops, but if it has to send its own troops, it will have to do so. And I'm wondering if that will have to be the case. Doesn't seem that what is happening in Kenya is going to pull off the ground. So it means, therefore, that Washington might have to send its own troops. Ariel Henry may soon join the ranks of other former US allies who were dumped, betrayed, or killed by Washington. I repeat that. I repeat that because I have said this many times on this channel that that is what the US does. Ariel Henry may soon join the ranks of other former US allies who were dumped, betrayed, or killed by Washington, like Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, Manuel Noriega, Rafael Trujillo, and yes, even likely, Jovenel Moïse. Right? She will kill. And that is what you've got to understand. You've got to live for principles and not to betray your fellow man. I mean, look at what Judas did. Betraying his Lord, betraying the betrayal of his own Lord, right? And the same people which connived to him to have betrayed his Lord, when he went back to them and told them that, my God, I set God free, set Jesus free, because, you know, his blood is going to be upon my shoulder, right? Set him free, set the man free, he's innocent, even though he wanted them to have imprisoned Christ, right? But what did they tell him? They told him that they didn't care, right? They told him to leave. They don't care. Even though he went back to confess that he had made the wrong move, they did not care. The Roman soldiers, the Roman officers, the Roman authorities did not care because he had committed an unprincipled deed, which he should not have done, the betrayal of his Lord, right? And Ariel Henry should know better because he was even brought up in the Seventh Adventist Church. And I think he has even minute understanding of the prophecies of Daniel and the Revelation. He's no dunce, right? This is a doctor. He has a PhD, a doctorate in the medical sciences, right? So he would have listened to the prophecies. He might not have understood everything because there's a lot to be unpacked, but he has a grasp, a basic understanding of the teachings of the eschatological teachings, right? Eschatological teachings of the Seventh-day Adventist movement, right? And he should understand the role of the United States in last days prophecies. But because of his hunger and thirst for power, he decided to betray his own people. And it seems to me now that the Roman soldiers, the Roman authorities in the form of US authorities are about to betray him also, and to send him and to treat him and to deliver him as a sacrificial lamb, something that is very, very interesting. Now listen to how Ives, as Kim Ives ends his piece, his article. And this is something that was said by Henry Kissinger. As the late Henry Kissinger is once reported to have said, and these are the words of Henry Kissinger, it may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but to be America's friend is fatal. Right? To be America's friend is fatal. Right? Let's repeat that just for you to remember that. And these words were said by Henry Kissinger. It may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but to be America's friend is fatal. Because as a friend, she is going to use you, and after she uses you, she is going to spit you out of her mouth. That is how the show is run, right? And I think people like the Edward Siavas of Jamaica learned that lesson, learned that bitter lesson. And Edward Siaga, I saw him, went to his grave weeping. He had he had delivered a speech at the University of Technology in Kingston, Jamaica. That's Edward Siaga. And Edward Siaga was a CIA approved and sponsored Prime Minister of Jamaica, right? And he went to his grave weeping, weeping. I saw him at that, conference there at the University of Technology, where he was giving the history of Jamaican music and, just talking about what happened in the 70s and 80s. He wept, right? He wept uncontrollably. I watched the man, Edward Siaga, who was so proud and so arrogant. He wept. And sadly, I wept with him because even though I know what he did and I know of his betrayal, but I understand as a human person that when we forsake to stand up for what is right, to stand up, though the heavens fall, we are going to regret it. And I think at this moment, Ariel Henry is regretting the betrayal of his people. I don't know if he is repenting, because there's a time, Judas reached the moment where he could not even confess his sins. But he could have confessed, but he was not truly a repentant person, right? Because God had given him many opportunities to forsake his sins, and he didn't. So eventually, when we harden our hearts, we're going to reach that point where even God can't help us. And we are going to be left up to the slaughter. We're going to be left to the slaughter of the enemy of our souls, right? And when we fall into the hands of sinful man, a lot of times they have no mercy, right? Even if they purport or had purported to be our friends. So right now, the future of Haiti is uncertain. And as I've told you on many occasions, I don't know who to trust. I was sort of trying to side with Jimmy Cherizier, right? But the more I read of Jimmy Cherizier, I want to know who is funding this guy and for whose cause is he working. He's saying all the nice words that we want to hear, but we must understand that people's words have also got to be balanced with their actions, and they also have to be aligned with the people who are funding them, because the people who are funding them are the persons with whom they are siding. Right? Thank you so much for joining this brief, discourse. I hope to see you in the next video. All the best to you, and hopefully we can have we can have another exciting topic on which to extrapolate. See you then.